And I would just say to you, Christian, when you're called to Christ, and you are called now as ambassadors of the Lord Jesus Christ, and you are now called to not only live out and model and reflect the glories of Christ, but you also then get to share that message of Christ with others, and you might share that message with Christ with somebody who would see the implications of that gospel and would think of themselves, well, if what you're saying is true, what it means then I'm in sin, and my life is in rebellion to God. And then I'm under God's judgment. If your message is true, then I am under God's divine wrath. And what's your answer in that moment? Yeah. That's not an easy message to say to someone when you're sitting face to face with them in the moment. And the question would be, what is the compelling motive for you to continue to proclaim that message? Do we try to take away the offense? Do we try to soften it in some way and say, well, yeah, it's really not that bad. Well, God's not really that, holding that standard. He'll change his standard. Do we try to save a friendship? Or is our heart reflecting what the Apostle Paul's heart is saying here? I'm walking in integrity. I'm grieved over your state of being. I desire you to be reconciled to God. You're living in this state of rebellion, but there's mercy and grace in God if you turn to him. Maybe if you continue to persist in rejection, you're going to be under his divine judgment, and that judgment is going to lead to eternal condemnation. But you don't have to have eternal condemnation, for even now you can turn and believe upon Christ and have deliverance. And while it brings me sorrow that you're in this state of rebellion, my sorrow isn't over for me. My sorrow isn't for my comfort. My sorrow is genuinely for you, that you would turn, that you would believe. See, way too many are so consumed for themselves that they are unwilling to be experiencing personal sorrow for the sinner. They want their own reputation to be lifted up. They want their own personal comfort, and so they mute the message of God so they don't have the offense. And I would just say simply this: embrace the message of God and embrace the offense, the personal grief that you have to bear. Because if you're not ready to bear this kind of sorrow, then you don't have the same kind of heart as God has. For God is grieved over the rebellion of his people, Israel, and of the sinner. Paul says, I have great sorrow, unceasing grief. Are we ready to embrace the emotional sorrow and difficulty that comes when having to proclaim the truth and sinners reject it? Are we ready to proclaim the truth and have hostility facing the proclamation of the message?